Chapter 28. "Now what?" Billie said. "Can we get out of these suits?" She had her faceplate open, as did Wilks, so they could talk. But it would only be the work of a second to slap it shut and seal it.
"No, because Spears hasn't come blasting through the door doesn't mean he doesn't know we're here. You can shuck the extra gear, but keep your weapon ready."
Wilks was already checking his own carbine. The dry lube used in the mechanical part of the weapon was supposed to be more or less impervious to high or low temperatures, but he cycled the action and ejected a couple of live rounds to be sure. It wouldn't do to have the damned thing frozen solid by the cold vac if Spears did show up waving a gun of his own. "Okay, mine works," Billie said.
"Good.
"What now?"
Now we wait a little while and see what he does. If he knows we're here, he'll do something."
"Or maybe he'll rig another concussion grenade like he did back on the base, and wait for us to walk through and trigger it," she said.
"That's possible. That's another reason for us to stay here and wait. Nothing happens for the next hour or so. We'll work our way forward, carefully."
Billie nodded. "You're in charge." Wilks nodded back at her. Yeah. He wished he felt as good about it as he tried to sound. Spears finished his preparations. He had to assume that the sergeant, what was his name? Watts? Jenks? Something. Was a good enough soldier to do a basic recon before embarking on anything precipitous. If he were him, he'd assume he'd been spotted on arrival, and suspect that his enemy was prepared for him. Which was true. In the sergeant's boots, Spears would dig in, find a defensible position, and wait for his opportunity to take the opposition out. A single, well-placed shot would do it. The sergeant must be hoping Spears would make a foolish misstep and give him the chance. Sorry, Marine, not this time. Too bad he was no longer interested in leading human troops. This sergeant would make a good officer. He was brave, smart, willing to take chances. In another lifetime, Spears would have bumped him up in rank, and been glad to have him in his service. And he was certain, even though he had not seen him, that one of the two hiding down in the aft cargo area was Wilks. That was his name. Wilks. Spears offered the unseen enemy a sketchy salute. "Better luck next incarnation, son." He moved to the attack. Billie hunched down across from Wilks, trying to hide behind a modular cargo container. Empty, it seemed, and to get comfortable in the spacesuit. She didn't think she managed to do either very well. The suit hadn't been designed for such contortions, and the joints didn't bend easily. They were in a place where they could watch the hatch leading into the bay from the rest of the ship. The only other ways in or out were through the external hatches. And while he didn't think Spears would try that, Wilks had fixed those portals so they couldn't be opened from either side anymore. Nobody was going to sneak up behind them, he'd said. And nobody was going to be leaving that way either, not without a lot of work first. Waiting for something to happen was driving Billie closer to the edge every minute. She hated this. Suddenly, it got dark. And when she jerked around to look for Wilks, Billie floated up into the air. Shit.
"Billie! Close your faceplate, now!"
Wilks reached up and slapped his own plate shut, then reached for his oxy feed. He heard the door to the corridor slide open on its track, and he tried to bring his carbine to bear that way. It was hard to do in 0G. Spears had cut the lights and gravity, probably the air too, and Wilks guessed he would either shove a gun through the door, bet your ass he was braced when the faux grav shut down, and hose the room, or maybe toss a grenade inside. It wouldn't be anything big, nothing that might hole the ship. Concussion bomb, maybe a little fragger. The suits wouldn't even slow down the shards of a fragger, much less a 10mm caseless. Damn, damn, damn! When the timer shut off the power and air and faux grav on the Jackson, Spears was in position. Even if they were braced for an assault, the cessation of weight ought to throw them for a moment. Long enough to lob a concussion grenade into the hold. Once they were out, it would be the work of a moment to finish them. The door slid open. Spears, braced and holding himself down, tossed the grenade through, then pulled himself out of the doorway and flat against the wall. Some of the blast would enfilade back through the opening, of course, but he wouldn't be in its path. Without gravity to slow it, the grenade would sail a long ways before it hit a wall and bounced back. It was possible it could come straight back out the door, he supposed, but that wasn't going to happen, because the grenade's fuse was a short timer, and in about a second, the gravity came back on. Spears was prepared for it. The thumps inside the hold told him his enemy had not been. He grinned. The emergency lighting had been suppressed, of course, but the tiny red and green power diodes mounted next to the door's control panel were battery-powered. They didn't put out much light, but there was enough of a glow for Wilks to see something moving fast in the doorway. He was still half a meter above the floor, and twisting to shoot the carbine would produce enough recoil to move him like a small rocket would. Still, he had to do something. Wilks shoved the carbine toward the door. He squeezed the grip and thus lit the laser sight. The tiny red dot danced crazily along the doorway. When it disappeared, he figured he was as lined up as he was going to get. He fired. The recoil spun him through the air, like a wobbly planet on its axis. Billie saw the muzzle flash from Wilks's gun, a spearhead shape of red and orange. The light from the blast showed her where he was, but he vanished in the dark immediately after the flash died. Her helmet muted the sound somewhat. She heard the bullet spang against something past the door. She thought, it was so dark. A brilliant light splashed her, strobing the hold. Then something heavy thumped against her, knocking her backward. She flew like a bird with an injured wing, tumbling. The gravity came back, and she fell to the deck, slid a little, stopped. Jesus. Spears knew carbine fire when he heard it, and the bullet punched through the wall behind him and to his left as he shifted and regained weight to a careful stance. The shot and the grenade's blast came almost together. He'd wait a second to see what happened. Wilks hit the deck hard, landed on one shoulder. He rolled to a prone firing position, thrust the carbine out, and fired the laser's dot against the far wall next to the door. On the chance that Spears might be flattened against the wall there, Wilks opened up and drew a dotted line from the wall across the doorway to the opposite flanking wall. He fired on semi-auto, for control. He hoped Billie had enough sense to stay down, wherever she was. A round burst through the wall between Spears's body and his arm. A few centimeters either way, and it would have hit him. Damn, the grenade had missed them. The bullets chewed fist-sized holes moving away from Spears, spraying insulation and bits of wall plastic as they mushroomed and tumbled. Time to regroup, he thought. His initial attack had been thwarted. He knew when to cut his losses. Spears slapped the door control. The door slid shut. He moved away quickly, toward the blast door a few meters up the corridor. Once on the other side of that, he stopped. He lowered the door. This hatch had been designed as a pressure safety device. It was airtight, constructed of duralloy, and capable of stopping something as puny as assault rifle fire. From his belt, Spears pulled a spot welder. He lit the arc and braze feed, and ran the bead along the base of the door. To be sure, he added a half-meter on each side. Then he opened the control box and slagged the electronics. Finally, he lifted the manual safety hatch and welded the crank handle to the steel safety cage. This door wasn't going to be opened from the other side unless somebody had a cutting torch, and he didn't think Wilks was that prepared. But just in case, he set 2 fragmentation grenades on stick blobs to the wall at eye level and ran a tripwire. If by some miracle they managed to raise the door, a careless step would get them. And he rigged the trip so it was 3 meters away from the doorway itself. They'd maybe look for a wire on the way through, but probably not so far away. Not, he thought, that they would ever get through in the first place. He couldn't micromanage the gravity on a ship this size, but he could keep them cold and in the dark, without air. Even if they had their own air supply, they couldn't last more than a day or two. Ah, well, Better shut down the recorders. This hadn't come off quite as neatly as he had hoped. No problem. A win was a win. It might not be pretty, but they were bottled up back there, and that was the end of it. He gave them credit for trying, but close wasn't good enough for a cigar. Spears laughed softly at his own joke and went forward. Wilks and Billie had the suit lamps lit, so they could see each other okay. It was dark, and it seemed to Wilks already getting cold and stuffy.
"Might as well breathe his air for as long as we can,"
he said.
"When whatever is already in here is gone, that'll be it. We're back to the tanks. Shit."
"Wilks, are we screwed?"
"Yeah. He's dropped the pressure door down the hall, fucked the controls up. He must have known we were coming all along. We're lucky the concussion bombs didn't get us, but yeah, we're screwed. We ain't going anywhere now."
"Can't we get outside the ship?"
"Maybe. I could probably manage to unseal the hatch we came in if I tried hard enough. But the minute we step outside, he'll shake us off like fleas from a steel dog. We'd never find another way in time."
"Can we blow the ship up?" He looked at her. He understood the thought. If they were gonna die anyhow, might as well take the bastard with them.
"I don't think so. This is a military-grade vessel. I could set off what grenades we have, but it wouldn't do much more than ruin the aft section, if that. These ships are built in segments, airtight compartments. We could take out some inner walls, but segments are armored like the hull. The drives are amidships and out of reach. Even if we did cripple it, we'd die as a result. And he could probably just transfer to the MacArthur at this point."
"So that's it?"
"Well, we might get to the oxy stores buried in the walls here and bypass his controls. We might get enough air to last a couple more days."
"But not to get to Earth."
"That would be my guess."
"Damn."
"Sorry, kid. We tried. We lost. That's the way it goes sometimes."
"Nothing we can do?"
"Not unless we can convince Spears to turn over the keys to the escape pod."
"Maybe if we said please?" Wilks thought about that for a second.
I got a better idea. Maybe if we said, or else." "Hello, General Spears,"
said the voice from the comm. It was on the suit radio op-chan, right where he thought it would be. Spears leaned back in his form chair and nodded at the comm.
"I was expecting you to call, son. Nice try, but you lose." "Maybe, maybe not. Billie and I, we were hoping you could see your way through to cutting us loose." "What would be the point, Marine? It's a long walk home. You'd never make it." "We could if we had one of those 2 escape pods."
Spears grinned.
"That you might. But I'd have to give you one. And I don't really see that as a possibility. Nothing for me to gain." "We'll trade you for it." "Son, you don't have anything to trade." "How about 9 linked M40 grenades, all set to go off at once?" "So you blow out the ass of the vessel and kill yourselves. It won't even dent the armor amidships. Nice try, but you ought to know better." "Oh, I didn't mean I had the grenades here, General." Spears leaned forward. "What are you talking about?" "Well, Billie and I, we figured you were pretty good when we flew up here. Given our experiences so far, we had to bet there was a good chance you'd take us out." "Good bet." "Yeah, well, you're a general, and I'm a sergeant. But we figured, what the hell? If we died, we could have the last laugh." "Keep talking."
He had a feeling he knew where this was going, and it sent a chill through him.
"So before we left, I rigged a little explosive in the MacArthur. kind of a going-away gift, you know? With a timer. We gave ourselves plenty of time to get here and beat you. Plenty of time. Got an hour or so left. You're bluffing. I can see how you might think so, but we aren't. And can you take the chance? If we did wire the ship, your tame monsters get an e-ticket ride to nowhere in about 58 minutes. Your command, General? Adios forever.
Spears stared at the comm. Wilks was bluffing, he was pretty sure. But if he wasn't... Damn. Could he take the chance?
Now if you want to trade, here's the deal. You cut one of the pods loose, within the next 2 minutes. That way, you don't have time to go and play with it. Billie and I, we leave the ship, rendezvous with the pod, and radio you the location of the bombs. You can get to the ship and deactivate them in the other pod easy enough, with 20 minutes to spare.
Assuming I believe you, and do this, Spears said. What's to stop me from blasting you and the pod into atomic dust with my ship's guns the second you radio me the location?
Your word that you won't?
Spears grinned wider. My word?
You're a man of honor, aren't you, General?
Of course, son. Spears chewed at his thumbnail. He couldn't take the chance that Wilks was telling the truth. Not with his army at risk. Besides, once they were outside the ship and in the pod, he could pot them easy enough. As long as they were in the aft cargo bay, they might figure out some way to get out and into the rest of the ship. Damned fucker was resourceful. All right, Marine. You have a deal. Billie grinned at Wilks. He bought it.
We ain't home free yet,
he said, but he grinned back at her.
He'll probably plan on taking us out with the ship's guns as soon as we're in the pod.
What about his honor?
Are you kidding? He's a sociopath. He's got as much honor as a spider.
So how do we stop him from shooting us?
I have an idea. If we're fast and lucky, it'll work. If not, we're no worse off than we were before.
I'm with you all the way, she said. It's not like I've got another engagement or anything. Once they were inside the escape pod, a small ship capable of a couple of weeks of cramped flight, it wasn't 20 seconds until the comm lit with the incoming call.
All right. Where are the bombs?
Wilks was busy putting the drive system online. He powered up the small engines, activated life support.
Strap in,
he ordered Billie. She obeyed. Where are we going? There's nowhere to hide out here.
Yes, there is. Watch.
He tapped a control, and the little ship moved forward.
Wilks, I want the location of the bombs now, or I will cancel our agreement and blast you.
Too late, Wilks said as the pod moved almost back to where it had been launched from the ship.
What good does this?
His guns are on top, the sides, and under the nose, Wilks said. His field of fire covers a full sphere, but there aren't any guns directly under the pod launch bay, and he can't elevate or depress any of them enough so he can accidentally shoot himself. Or in this case, us. The tiny ship rode a few meters away from the larger vessel. Can we stay here?
Not for long. He'll start playing with the drives, and we'll lose contact. But he can't wait. The clock is running. Hold on.
Wilks touched the comm.
General, you want to go to the power control box for the aliens' tanks. The main cable from the generator to the control cabin, where it leaves the forward circuit breaker and the G-drive housing next to the gyro switch complex. Damn, I thought you were bluffing. No, but I lied. You've got about 10 minutes to pull the charges, not 20. If you dick around trying to shake us so you can chew us up with the Jackson's guns, you might not have time to save the MacArthur.
There was a moment of silence. Then,
You would have made a good line officer, son. You got more guts than a slaughterhouse.
Thank you, General.
All right. You can tell your grandchildren that you went up against me and survived. That'll mean something someday.
To Billie, Wilks said, "Hang on." With that, he turned the pod so it faced the ship 2 clicks behind them and hit the thrusters full power. The little ship shot out from under the Jackson's belly like a minnow darting from under a shark. The G-force was strong enough to press them back into their seats. "I don't think he'll shoot in this direction," Wilks managed to say through stretched lips. "He won't want to hit the MacArthur, I hope." "I hope you're right," Billie said. This time, Wilks was. The escape pod shot past the following ships so fast it was only a blur on their scopes.